Okay, we are live now.
Shagun, over to you.
Okay, just give me a minute. Okay. Can you guys see me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Good morning, students. Welcome to How to Write a Powerful Personal Statement. We have Robert, who is our Oxford Service expert, who will be presenting. And we also have Adia, who is our Senior Education Consultant, who will be presenting about the UCAS deadline. Over to you, Robert.
Good morning. My name is Robert Money. I work for SIUK. I'll be giving you a presentation on how to write a powerful personal statement. This will be quite similar to the, if not identical, to the presentation I usually give at university fairs. If any of you have been to any of our university fairs at Lancaster Gate, this will be quite the same presentation. If at any time I'm speaking too quietly for you to hear, do speak up and let me know, or if I'm being too loud. But I'll start now. I'll give my presentation, and then my colleague Adia is going to talk to you about UCAS. So I'm going to talk about personal statements. And then Adia Imanova, my colleague, is going to talk to you about UCAS. And after that, we will have a question and answer session where you can ask anything you want about, you can direct, I think, your questions about personal statements to me and your questions about UCAS to Adia. So let's begin now. I believe all of you can see this PowerPoint slide that I'm showing now. So I'll be referring to that. How to write a powerful personal statement. So I'm Robert Money. I work for SAUK and I help students with their personal statements. I help students apply for universities, including high-ranking universities, such as Oxford and Cambridge. But let's begin by way of introduction. We are, if you don't know already, we are SAUK. We are UK university specialists, and our role, our raison d'etre, is to give support and advice for international students like you applying to UK universities. We are a bridge between them and you. Our job is to get you into them. If you've got ambitions to come and study in this country, our role is to help you realize those ambitions and make your dreams come true. We are official representatives of UK universities. We've got very good relationships with many UK universities. We have official agreements with them. We represent them, and we can probably find an experienced counsellor who can give you advice in your own language to make it easier. And a number of us have been trained by the British Council and indeed by UK Visas and Immigration. So that's who we are. And we have 92 offices in 40 countries. We've been expanding at a very rapid rate around the world in recent times. And our aim is to get, as I say, you could see that map, a great number of offices in India, Pakistan, amongst other places. We are getting students from those countries. We've got offices in those countries. We're getting students from those countries into UK universities. There's a list. There's a list of our offices. Note how many there are in India. We're expanding, and we're helping people into universities. So anyway, now that we've introduced ourselves, let's get down to brass tacks and talk about what we're here to talk about. What is a personal statement? Let's begin by defining our terms. What actually is a personal statement? A personal statement is, and this applies whether you're going for undergraduate or foundation or postgraduate or PhD or MPhil, excuse me. Personal statement is a short essay about your academic and personal experiences. And if you're applying for undergraduate study via UCAS, of which more later, there is a limit to the personal statement. It can only be it cannot be more than 4,000 characters, including spaces, and 47 lines. Otherwise, people would write their entire life story. It would go on forever and ever and ever. People would feel pressured to write more and more things, and there'd be no end of it. So they imposed this limit of 4,000 characters, including spaces, and 47 lines. And as the crow flies, that works out to about 600 words. You could perhaps get away with 700, but that's rather pushing it. And that gives you an idea of how long it should be. I mean, I think an ideal personal statement is 550 words. Anything less than 500 is probably a little bit too little. Anything under 450 is not enough. I think 550, 600 is the sweet spot. And anything much beyond 650, and you're probably, I mean, of course, some words are longer than others. But if you do get beyond 650, you're getting close to that 4,000 character limit, and 47 lines. And that's going to be about 4 or 5 paragraphs. I'd say 4 paragraphs or 5. I mean, 3 paragraphs is probably too few, because it's going to be, and 2 is much too few. Because if your paragraphs are too large, there's too much for the reader to take in. The reader needs a breathing space. I'd say if you had 7 or 8 paragraphs, that it's too stop, start, stop, go. It's too staccato. There's a lack of rhythm there. I would say 4 or 5 paragraphs, and that's going to be, say, let's say 5 paragraphs of about 120 words each. Although, of course, some paragraphs can be, say, 200 words, and some can be maybe under 100. But that's the sort of size and structure that you're looking at for a personal statement. And you have to think about, well, if that's what a personal statement is, then what should it consist? What do you want to put in it? And then you have to think about what are UK university missions officers looking for? What do they want to see? And I would say they want to see why you're interested in this subject, first of all. What is your motivation? I mean, they can see your grades from other parts of the application process. They can read your reference. But what's your motivation? Why do you want to study economics, for example, if you're going for economics? Or why do you want to study business management? Why do you want to study medicine? How did you become interested in this subject? Why are you going for this curriculum as opposed to all the others? What do you want to do in your career? What job are you looking to get on the back of this degree? To what professional end will this be the academic means? How did your interest begin? How did your interest continue? Was it a book you read a few years ago? Was it a particular class, a particular teacher who inspired you? Was it something you saw on television? Was it a personal experience? Was it a museum you went to? Was it an exam you did particularly well in, and suddenly you were interested? Where did it all begin? How did you get into it? And what aspects of this subject are you interested in? Because something like business is a very big or marketing. They're enormous subjects, and so it's only natural that the university should know which aspects, which particular topics within this subject interest you. Is it advertising campaigns or branding if you're going for marketing? If it's economics, you're interested in Adam Smith and John Maynard Keynes. If you're going for accounting and finance, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a chartered accountant? Do you want to work in investment banking? If you're going for international relations, well, which nations and which relations? You interested in, is it Eastern Europe or the Middle East? Or is it Asia Pacific? what's your angle? Where are you coming from with this? That's what they want to see. You need to nail your colors to a particular mast, and tip the cards a bit and give them an idea of what you want to study, what interests you. And you can talk about, then they want to know about your academic and non-academic achievements to date. Now, I stress this is not just listing the subjects you've taken and the grades you've got, because that's referred to in a different section of the application form, and you don't want to be repeating yourself. This is your chance to write about those things which are not included elsewhere in the application form, are not mentioned elsewhere, and which the admissions officer is not going to know about unless you tell them. So this personal statement is your chance to tell them. For example, you can talk about your extended essay. You can talk about your dissertation, your EPQ, your extended project qualification. Or if you're going for a master's, you can talk about the undergraduate thesis, the final year project you did, because they're not going to know about that from elsewhere in the application. And let's assume that the referee hasn't referred to it, and it might be alluded to in the transcripts, but tell them all about it. What was which topic did you choose, and why? Which books did you read for it? What conclusions did you come to? What opinions did you express? What opinions did you oppose? What was your take on that topic? Tell them all about it, and that gives them an idea of what you're interested in and what you can do. And certainly, if you're going for a vocational degree such as medicine, then certainly they want to hear about your non-academic achievements, or even business management, which is obviously a degree which requires collaborative skill and teamwork. Tell them about the non-academic things you achieve, which give evidence of teamwork. For example, if you captained your school in soccer, talk about that and talk about leadership. Talk about maybe a play you put on. Anything that suggests get up and go initiative, logistical skill, an ability to get on with people is useful, particularly for a degree course involving a subject which includes collaborative ability. If you're going for something more cerebral, more intellectual, like mathematics or physics, then perhaps the non-academic achievements matter less and the academic achievements matter more. In those circumstances, you're going to be talking more about the experiments you performed, the Olympiads that you won, the concepts that you digested, and you can lay these concepts on the table by way of demonstrating your understanding of them. Instead of simply asserting that you're very interested in physics, very interested in maths, you don't need to assert it. You prove it. Don't tell, show, and you show by discussing these concepts in such a way as to prove that you have understood them, can talk about them, really know about them, and that creates confidence in the mind of the reader that you are good at the subject and would be a pleasure to teach in this subject. And you can talk about your career goals. And again, if you're going for a postgraduate degree in management or certainly an MBA, then it's very, very important to convince them that you have a career plan laid out. If you're only going for an undergraduate degree in a humanities subject, then I think it's very much less important to talk about your career goals. Firstly, you're quite young, and you might not be expected to have your career mapped out yet. Secondly, if it's a humanities degree, it's less vocational, it's less commercial, so there's less focus on the career plan. But if it's a business degree, and certainly if it's a postgraduate business degree, then you definitely want to talk to them about where you see us, what your short-term career goals are, where you see yourself in a few years' time, and what type of business person you want to be. Doesn't mean you have to stick to it. Doesn't mean you have to, that you're going to be bound by, in 3 years' time, you're not going to be bound by what you've said in your personal statement. But at least you need to paint them a picture, sketch them a schedule of what you want to do in the labor market when you leave university, what you're going to do a year later, year after that. What precise job specification are you going for? Which company would you want to work at? Do feel free to name names. You might want to say, I want to be a management consultant trainee at Accenture or McKinsey, for example. And this is the sort of project I want to work on. And this is the promotion I want to get. This is the sort of work I want to be doing. And after that, in 5 years or maybe 7 years, I want to move to this company, and then I want to set up my own business, which will do this, and will have this unique selling point, and will plug a gap in the market and bring in a new product, and disrupt the industry. And that's how you convince them that you've got a plan and that you've thought in detail about this, that you mean business. You're not just doing this degree because you've got nothing else on, or because your parents pushed you into it, or because you don't really want to get a job yet. You're doing this degree because it's going to be, you've thought it through, and this degree is going to be the means to definite ends in professional life that you've thought about and have a plan for. That inspires confidence on the part of the admissions officer reading what you're writing. Then you can talk about your work experience. So I referred earlier to non-academic achievements, like extracurricular activities at school or university, student union or drama or sports, volunteering. But you can certainly talk about your work experience. And again, if you're going for undergraduate humanities, that's less important. But if you're going for a medicine degree, then it's absolutely vital to talk about the hospital work you did, or the work you did in a care home, or anything which suggests a readiness on your part to help people and do dirty work. It doesn't have to be a super duper internship in a surgery, but it needs to show teamwork, get up and go, and an altruistic sort of desire to help clean up after people. Work in a care home, for example, if that's vital to talk about that. For medicine, being good at science won't be good enough for medicine. You also need to have the work experience, which it can be very humble work. It just needs to show that you're ready to roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty. And again, if you're going for a business course, then any work experience it can be valuable, even if it's just working in a shop. Anything that shows that you're ready to get up and go and work, and can be relied upon to turn up on time and work with people and be trusted with other people's money, is valuable. You can talk about that, and then you can talk about why you're a good candidate. And again, this isn't simply asserting that you are a good candidate. This is proving, demonstrating how good a candidate you are. Talk about the books you've read in such a way as to show that you've actually read the book. Talk about the ideas in the book and what you think of them. Talk about what you've achieved and what your reflections are on those achievements. And that creates the impression that you're a serious candidate. You've done things, you've read things, you've thought about things, and that you mean business. So those points, those 5 points: why you're interested in the subject, academic, non-academic achievements, career goals, work experience, why are you a good candidate? Maybe that can take up 5 paragraphs, but that is only one way of doing it. There are lots of other ways of doing it. Your first paragraph could be about your work experience, or it could be about your academic achievements. Your last paragraph could be about the books you've read, or it could be about your career goals. There are lots of different ways of structuring a personal statement. There's no one way. There are lots of different ways, and I wouldn't get too worried about structure. I think the idea is to get your ideas down on paper, and then worry about structure later. And while we're on the subject of structure, which I'll talk more about in a bit, I mentioned earlier that that UCAS has the 4,000 character, 47 line limit. If you're going for a postgraduate degree and you're not using UCAS, then the chances are that the university will be expecting a personal statement of roughly similar length, again, about 550 to 600 words. Or if it's even a PhD, it's going to be about the same. But there are some exceptions. I mean, there is a university in London which, for master's courses, expects a personal statement of between 1,000 and 1,500 words. So that's a lot longer. And that's a way of getting you to say lots and lots of things, as it were, giving you enough rope to hang yourself with, if we're being cynical, but also giving you a chance to tell them how wonderful you are, lots of space to get lots of points, tell them lots of things about you, which gives you every chance to make a good impression on them. That's one way. But there's another London university that has, for postgraduate degrees, a maximum of 3,000 characters, which is going to be about 450 words. So that's a rather different approach. That's forcing you to say many impressive things with few words. It forces you to be succinct, to deploy economy of prose, to use good English, not to waffle on, not to include extraneous. It's forcing you to get to the point quickly, and say it interestingly without much space, which is also an important facet of good writing. Is economy of prose. It's being lapidary, no redundant words, no unnecessary phrases. Just get to the point and make many points in a short space. That's so. Some universities have a different approach. Some want more, some want less. But on the whole, the length of your personal statement is going to be, even at postgraduate level, is going to be quite similar to what it would be at undergraduate level. As I say, 4 or 5 paragraphs, about 600 words, and they want to hear about your interests, what you've studied, what work you've done, extracurriculars, and career ambitions, with enough evidence to show that your interest in this subject, your academic, intellectual interest, goes beyond what the teacher has told you to do and extends towards you, of your own initiative, going and finding out about this subject on your own steam, because you want to, because it interests you, and that's your motivation for further study, and not just you being pushed into it by parents that want to convince themselves that you're actually doing something with your life. So that's what a personal statement is, and that's what it should contain. So let's move on. Again, structure, reasons for applying, what you've gained from your courses. So if you're going for a master's, tell them the highlights of your undergraduate degree, the most interesting bits of it. Let's imagine that you wanted to do a master's degree at a particular university and were particularly interested in being tutored by a certain person who was an academic at that university. Then let's imagine you found yourself in a train carriage sitting next to that person, and you had 20 minutes to impress that person, and convince them that you would be a pleasure to teach, would be good in their tutorial, would be a good addition to their postgraduate cohort. What would you talk about? Which aspects of the subject would you bring up to show them how interested you were? And what would you tell them about your undergraduate degree? The highlights, the best bits, the essays you did particularly well on, the experiments you performed well. Think of that. Think of what that conversation would look like. And then that gives you an idea. That's basically what you want to be writing about in the personal statement. Think of those ideas, get them down on paper, and worry about how about just get ideas, because people suffer from writer's block, and they're worried about where to begin, and they worry about what the structure should be. But there's no one size fits all. There are lots of different potential structures. So just get your ideas down on paper, and I'm not saying the structure will take care of itself, but you can worry about that later. Once you're airborne, once you've got second wind and you've got your ideas down on paper, you can worry about how to structure it later on. Okay, so hints and tips. Now, it's good to have a strong introduction, because, as I'm sure you know from writing essays, if the introduction begins slowly and ponderously as a sort of preambular throat-clearing exercise, then you risk losing the interest of the reader. And if you lose the interest of the reader, then you might have only the smallest part of their attention when they are reading the rest of your essay. And then, even if you make good points, it might go over their heads because they're only skimming reading. They're not, you've lost them. They're not engaging. Whereas if you begin well with an excellent first few sentences, begin with a strong introduction, then they're interested, they're keen, they want to know more. You've got them engaged, and then they will perhaps pay more attention to your subsequent paragraphs. So it's very important to begin well, to have a strong introduction. And the example I always give is of the historian I knew of many years ago, who was he was a good historian, but he was terrible at writing introductions. So his way when writing a history essay was simply to write his bad introduction, and then it would only be in the subsequent first paragraph, the first paragraph after the introduction, that he'd really get going and get down to brass tacks and start talking sense. And so he'd do that. Then he'd get to the end of the essay, and then he'd simply tear up the introduction, and the first paragraph after the introduction he would put as his actual first paragraph of the whole essay. And I'm not saying you should do that, but it just gives you an idea of how the very first paragraph you need to hit the ground running. You need to begin at 100 miles an hour. You can't just gradually get into your stride. There isn't enough time for that. There isn't enough space. You have to begin by making great points right from the get-go. And with the conclusion also, there's a temptation with the conclusion to just limp over the finishing line, to think, phew, what a relief that that's almost over. Let's just pad out the essay with a few more sentences, and then sort of fizzle out. But that's a mistake. You should end on a crescendo, which on a positive, uplifting note, which leaves the reader wanting more. So you need to begin well, you need to end well. And do be technical enough to show your academic ability. You might be worried that if you write about quite technical, complicated topics, then the reader won't know what you're talking about, but they will. Always best to assume that the university official reading your personal statement has forgotten more about your subject than you've ever known. And therefore, you can go to town, you can go into great detail about the complexities of this subject, even if it's far beyond the school curriculum or the university curriculum that you've been doing. So if you've gone way out on a limb and read lots of books, relevant books, obviously, that are far beyond the curriculum, this is your chance to write about it and tell them about it and impress them with it. Don't hide your light under a bowl. Get it out there. Do be technical enough to show your ability. And that's how you prove your ability without having to simply assert it. As for language, do be crisp, concise, and formal. What you want is to say many things with few words. And you should take at random a sentence of your personal statement, and then take at random a word of that sentence. Take that word away from the sentence. Once that word has been taken away, does the sentence without that word still make sense and still say what it was saying previously when that word was in? If yes, that word was redundant and you should scrap it. If the sentence collapses and ceases to mean anything, then yes, you can keep that word because it was pulling its weight and it does need to be there. But if once that word is removed, the sentence still says substantially the same as what it was saying before, then you didn't need to have that word in the first place. And you should replace it with something which adds value and adds an extra point. Any sentence, and also if when you take any given sentence away from any given paragraph, nothing is lost in the sense of the paragraph, then that sentence didn't need to be there. It was a redundant sentence. It was useless ballast in a way. Every word should contribute to a sentence, and every sentence should contribute to a paragraph. And on that point, I would advise you to use short words rather than long words, simple words rather than intellectual words, and probably, words of Germanic origin rather than Latin. For example, let me give you two sentences. One sentence here: the rebels were thrown into jail. That's one sentence. Then another sentence: the insurrectionists were incarcerated in a detention center. Now, those two sentences mean exactly the same thing, just that the first one used simple, punchy Germanic words, whereas the second sentence used long, posh, sort of Latin words. And I would advise you, whenever possible, to use short, simple Germanic words rather than giving into the temptation in academia among students to use complicated, fancy words, which is a temptation which you should resist because it takes up space and it sounds pretentious. Obviously, there are lots of exceptions, and you should break any of these rules 1,000 times over rather than say anything that sounds clunky. And sometimes the rather complex word will be just perfect, and then you should use it. But I would say keep it simple, keep it short, and make sure that every word you write adds something and needs to be there. Don't talk about exam results because this will be clear in your transcripts. You don't need to repeat in your personal statement things which are stated elsewhere in the application form, because that's a waste of space that could be used to tell them about something that they won't know about having read the other parts of the application form. Don't say you've chosen a subject because of parents. I know in a lot of cultures there's a lot more respect for parental input than there maybe is in the West. But the admissions officers here do want to see that you've chosen this subject on your own steam, that it's coming from you, that you want to do it. Now, if your parents agree with your academic choices, all well and good, but you mustn't risk making them think that you've been pushed into it by them and that you yourself don't really have buy-in. That would be problematic. Now, if your father is a businessman and the idea is that you're going to be a businessman so you can inherit that business, that's fine. You can talk about that as long as you make it clear overall that you're doing this on your own initiative, and you've grown up a bit and you want to do it. It's not just them wanting to do it, wanting you to do it. At the risk of stating the obvious, do please avoid grammatical and spelling mistakes. Even if English isn't your first language, there's no need for you to make these mistakes. There's no need for it. You have technology, you have software which helps you not to make these mistakes. And certainly with UCAS, once you've submitted it, that's it. You can't go back and change it. You'd be mortified if you saw that there was a typo or a mistake or a syntactical or grammatical error, which it's now too late for you to correct. So make sure, read it, make sure everything is correct, that there are no commas where there should be full stops or full stops where there should be commas. I know it's obvious. People, I'm sure, get this wrong, and don't let you be one of those people. If you failed an exam, you don't need to mention it unless it's inescapable. If, for example, you've missed a year, then you have to explain why. Then you can say, well, yes, I did fail an exam, but then I went away, learned my lessons, worked much harder, came back, passed the exam, and emerged the better, stronger person for that bad experience. That's how you put a positive spin on it. Other than that, there's no need to list things which don't help your case. Try not to repeat words, particularly adjectives. You want this to read as a fluent and interesting, charming work of prose. Thank you for your patience. I now pass you over to Adia Imanova, who's going to talk to you about UCAS. And I go on to the next slide. Adia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Adia Imanova, and I'm a senior education consultant at UK London. So I will be talking about UCAS. I'll just talk about it briefly, but if you have any questions, we will be doing the Q&A session at the end of the seminar. So UCAS. So what is UCAS? UCAS stands for the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service, and it's an online application platform. So if you are applying for an undergraduate degree in the UK, you have to apply through UCAS. So obviously you can apply directly to the universities if they're allowed to do so, but most of the universities, especially top ranking schools, they will only allow students to apply via UCAS. And it doesn't matter whether you are an EU or international student. So UCAS is the only way to apply for an undergraduate degree course if you wish to study in the UK. And it allows you to apply for up to 5 different programs or universities. So you have a multiple choice on UCAS, and you have only one chance to get your information correct. So it's quite important. If you have not applied yet, if you want to start in September 2024 or September 2025, and if you have not started your application yet, and especially if you wish to start your course in September this year, then it's best to apply as soon as possible and seek an expert advice as well. So we can help you with that. Can we turn the next slide, please? Thank you, Robert. So the UCAS application deadline would be the 30th of June. So that's the other deadline. So the first deadline was in January. However, most of the schools are still accepting applications, and the deadline would be the 30th of June, 2024. But I would advise you to apply as soon as possible, because so universities normally get back to you. So they make their decision within 3 to 4 weeks. But some universities may take longer. So we've had previous experiences when universities would get back to students within 3 months or 6 months time. So that's quite a substantial period of time. So I would say if you apply now, then you should be able to get your decisions by June or July. But for some universities, they may be quicker. So for some unis, if it's a straightforward application, they may give you an offer if you're eligible within the next 2 or 3 weeks time. So the deadline, the official deadline would be the 30th of June, 2024 at 6 o'clock BST, which is UK time, for applications with choices. If you do not apply before the 30th of June, 2024, then you will be entered into UCAS clearing. So UCAS clearing is when you have not applied at all for September. This is for September 2024. When you have not applied before the 30th of June, and or if you've applied, let's say you've applied by yourself, and you have not received any offers as well, or if you applied but you don't want to go to any of the universities that you got offers from, so if you've withdrawn your choices, or you do not meet conditions of your offer. So you may be in your final year of high school now, and you may be finishing your high school in June or July 2024, and let's say you applied to 5 different universities and they issued you a conditional offer saying that you must finish your high school with a GPA of 3, but you got a GPA of 2.8. So that means you did not meet your conditions, and you can then use a UCAS clearing choice. So that means you have one more choice. Obviously, at this stage, I wouldn't recommend anyone to go through UCAS clearing, because you still have time and you can apply for up to 5 different universities through UCAS if you apply before the 30th of June. And the UCAS clearing, in case you have not applied at all, then the UCAS clearing starts from the 5th of July and it is normally run until the 18th of October. But if you are an international student, I would recommend you to apply as soon as possible, because you would also need to apply for a student visa. And that takes at least 3 to 4 weeks. But then again, if you need to prepare all the documents, such as your bank statement with a 28-day of sufficient funds. So basically all international students who are coming to the UK, most of them, they would need to show their bank statement as a financial evidence. And in that way, they would need to show that they have sufficient amount of funds, which has been held there for at least 28 consecutive days. So that may take even 2 or 3 months to prepare for the student visa application. So I would say if you apply within the next 1 or 2, 3 weeks max, then you should get your offer by the end of June, hopefully before that, and then you can make your a decision. So you will get a firm choice or an insurance choice. So you can choose up to 5 different out of 5 different universities. You can choose your firm choice. Again, I wouldn't recommend anyone to go through clearing, but if that's the case, then there is still a chance for you to apply from the 5th of July until the 18th of October. If you don't need a visa, then it's more flexible for you, because then you can apply even in August. But then again, if you want to apply, let's say for your student loan, then it takes a month to get it as well. Can we get the next slide, please, Robert? Thank you. And there are some documents required. So if you would like to apply with us, then we will require some of your documents, such as your transcripts and certificates from your previous educational institutions. All documents must be translated in English if they're not. And if you are, let's say, in your final year of high school and you will say, I have not finished my high school yet, or your bachelor's degree, that's not a problem, because we only need your current transcripts, which means your current grades and subjects that you have studied so far. Then another document is a personal statement, which is one of the key components. We can help you edit your personal statement as part of our services. We also ask for 1 reference letter. If you are in a university or a high school, then it must be from your academic. If you had a study gap, so let's say if you finished your high school or your bachelor's degree course in 2020 or 2021, and you have a couple of years of gap before you start your university, then you can ask for a reference letter from your employer. And we will also ask for a copy of your passport and the UCAS application fee. So to apply through UCAS, there is a fee that is payable, which is £27.5 for 2024. And if you want to apply with us, then there is a code that you would need to use. So your application will be linked to our agency, SA UK London, and the buzzword is UK Application 16, but we will help you with that should you wish to use our help. So the next slide, please. Thank you, Robert. Yes, so if you would like to stand out from the crowd, so we are offering different services. We have free services. One of our popular services is premium service, where we guarantee at least 1 university offer. So what we do is we first of all have a counseling session with students, depending on your nationality and where you're coming from. So we have different consultants at SA UK London who will be able to help you. So first thing first, we will arrange a counseling session for you. So it's a 40-minute counseling session with a student, just to identify which course they would like to study, which universities they would like to apply to, and if they need any further help with their personal statement as well. So we will be able to advise on choosing suitable universities and courses. Then we will normally complete an application form for up to 3 to 5 different universities. If it's through UCAS, then you have a choice of 5 different institutions. Then we will be able to edit your personal statements and other documents, such as your CV and references. The other document that I did not mention in the previous slide is your CV. So if you had any study gap, then you would need to send us your detailed CV as well. And then we make sure that we submit your application and track and make sure that you get an offer. So the fifth step is to make sure that you get a guaranteed offer. Now, if you have any questions, we'll be taking them in the Q&A session. If you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to do so. The email that you can email us is info@studying-uk.com. I will just put it in the chat box. If you have any questions, would you be able to put them in the chat box? Or you can also unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adia. I've got, sorry, students, we're just going to go through some questions that are already in the chat box, and then we'll put them to Adia and Robert. And then at the end, SIUK has also got an exciting offer for students who have attended today. So I guess the first question that we've received from Mariam, what is the deadline for postgraduate, and can you apply for it directly with universities? I guess this question is for Adia.
Yes, sure. For the postgraduate, thank you for your question, Mariam. Yes, so for the postgraduate application, depends on the university really, but for postgraduate applications, there is no deadline, so there's no formal deadline normally. However, if your university is, let's say, LSE or KCL, UCL, then there would be a deadline. So we just need to check the course, the specific course that you would like to study. If you want to get in touch with us, I would advise you to email us so we can check that out for you. And what was the other question? Sorry. The deadline?
So the other question, the other question is for you again, Adia. Thank you for that. It's from Arij. Can we apply for undergraduate directly to universities?
Yes, thank you, Amy. And thank you, the students. Yes, so for the undergraduate, for direct applications, yes, you can, if the university allows to do so, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So if a university allows to do so, then yes, you can. So potentially you can have more choices. So you can apply for up to 5 different universities via UCAS, and the 6th choice can be through a direct application on the website. But we need to check if that's possible.
Thanks, Adia. We've got another question from Oluwafemi. Do you have? Oh, sorry. Do you have any universities? Do you have any universities that start master's programs in January 2025?
Sure. So thank you, Aloha. Yes, actually, so one of the biggest intakes would be January as well. So the main intake would be September, and then the other intake is January. So January 2025 would be the next January intake after the September intake. Said yes, so there are a number of courses available. Depends which specific course you are interested in. But yes, so you can apply for either undergraduate or postgraduate courses starting in January. But then again, so if it's a specific course, let me think of the example. So most of the courses will be available from January, but some of them may not be available. So if you can let us know which specific course it is, then I can tell you whether it will be run in January or not.
Thank you, Adia. You've got quite a lot of questions coming at you today.
Sure.
Another one from Mariam. Can you apply for UK visa with conditional offer for postgraduate?
For UK visa with a conditional offer, no. So you have to have an unconditional offer. That's actually a good question. So you need to basically meet all your conditions of your offer. So if your offer is conditional, then you have to make sure that it's unconditional first. Then you ask for the CAS, which is the confirmation of acceptance of studies, if you need a visa from a university. So that's actually a number, a digital number that the university is issuing to international students. And with this digital number, which is called CAS, you need to apply for a student visa, but it cannot be issued until you meet the conditions of the offer. So you have to have an unconditional offer first.
Thank you, Adia. And then another one, do we have to apply to UCAS separately? I think you covered this at the beginning.
Yes, so you would need to apply through UCAS for any undergraduate degree course.
And we've got one from Hewaz. Can I apply? Can I apply for undergraduate if my high school graduation was 10 years ago?
Absolutely, yes. You just need to have a CV, as I also mentioned. So if you have any study gap between when you graduated from your high school and when you'd like to start your course. So let's say if you want to start in September 2024, then you would need to have a CV detailing the study gap. So if you finished your high school 10 years ago, we would still need your transcript from 10 years ago from the high school. Would also need the high school diploma as well, all translated in English, and a detailed CV. And that should be fine. You can apply for an undergraduate degree.
Farah, thank you so much, Adia. Farah, we're going to cover the SIEK services at the end of the session, but to find out more about the cost of the different services, please do get in touch with us directly, but we will be sending out some communications to students who have attended this particular session about the premium service. And then you can reach out to your SIEK consultant directly after that. And then we've got oh, sorry. Oh, I've got one from JV. I am currently attending a master's in the UK part-time with clinical placements. I'm interested to apply for medicine next year. Would you would the universities require an academic reference? If yes, could my educational supervisor in the hospital do this reference for me? Thanks. I think, Robert, this is more for you because you do the medicine.
Well, yes, I think you'd need an academic reference. You would need, I mean, your course supervisor, the person who's teaching you, I think should be your referee. I mean, in theory, anyone can be your referee. There are no hard and fast rules, but it is the norm when applying on UCAS, which you will be doing for medicine, because medicine courses are on UCAS, even if it's graduate entry medicine, it'll be on UCAS. The most obvious choice would be your tutor at university, whoever the academic is, who is your first port of call at university. That would be the most obvious choice of referee for whether it's applying for medicine or for any course. But if for whatever reason that isn't feasible, then you'll have to choose someone else. But whoever that someone else is, they need to have a credible connection with you and will need to be able to vouch for your academic abilities, or failing that, your those of your practical skills that are relevant for medicine. But I suppose I hope in theory it can be anyone. I mean, I've heard of cases. I think not for medicine. I've heard of cases of people applying for university courses where they've got their GP to give them a reference. Anyone who has respect in the community, who knows them. I mean, that's an extreme case. You're not going to use that for a medicine application. But I don't think there are any hard and fast rules about who your reference has to be. I mean, in some cases, with if you're going for a master's degree, they want one academic reference and one professional reference, and then it's more nailed down. The academic reference has to be academic, the professional reference has to be professional. But because I think that you're going to be applying on UCAS for medicine, I think it should be your academic referee. It should be your university tutor.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'm quite conscious of the time. So we've got 5 minutes, and if you've got any sort of burning questions that you think you want to get more into detail, please get in touch with SIUK by emailing info@studying-uk.com. where you'll be allocated your dedicated counselor depending on your nationality, and we'll be able to help you through your application process. I've got one. I think I've got time for 2 more questions. So another one from Hewaz. Can someone apply for a master's degree, business, for example, without a graduate degree? I think this is more for you, Adia.
Yes, without a graduate degree. You mean without your undergraduate degree?
Yeah.
You would normally need, yes, you would normally need to have an undergraduate degree certificate in order to apply for any master's degree in the UK. However, there are some exceptions as well. So if you've got a good experience, normally if you have more than 10 years of experience and you can show that in your CV, there is a chance for you to get accepted as, for the master's degree without doing your undergraduate, but I wouldn't recommend that. Still, we can try and see, because there are some universities that can accept students based on their high school diploma and transcripts, as well as their CV directly onto the master's degree programs.
Thank you, Adia. I think I saw a question around ChatGPT, which I thought might be interesting to cover. If you bear me a second. Oh, I've lost it. But I've got another one. I've got another question from. Sorry, bear with me. It keeps jumping up. So I've got another question from Prajit. Prajit, I have completed my BBA and have experience in NHS and the care sector for 2 years. I now want to study masters in social work. Currently, I am independent visa. What will be the process in my case?
So you have your BBA. We actually need to check with the university because there are different entry requirements. Do you want to apply for a master's in social work? So they will require experience, and depends on how many years you have as well. I think it's best if you can contact us at info, and then your consultant will get in touch with you. So I've just put in the chat box the info email. It's info@studying-uk.com. And you need to let us know if you want us to check your eligibility. You'd also need to send us your CV as well, preferably your CV and your undergraduate degree transcripts. So if it was, you said you did business administration, right? You would need to send us your undergraduate degree transcript, diploma, and a CV. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Adia, and thank you so much, Robert. Students, thank you so much for joining. I hope we wanted to give you sort of like a taster of how SIUK can support with your application process, especially with the September intake and UCAS deadlines coming up. But again, like Adia and Robert have said, if we're always here to help you and support you, so please do get in touch if you have any sort of burning questions that you need more detail into, and we'll our SIUK consultants will be able to help you through your application process. I'm also pleased to let you know that for the students that have attended this session, we'll be offering a 10% discount across all our services. So that's like for Oxbridge service, for UG and PG, and our premium services. We will be communicating this in a couple of hours with the discount codes. And also keep in mind that this discount will expire on the 29th of April at 11:59 p.m. So if you do go ahead with the services, it needs to be before then. But yes, please do get in touch, and thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you everyone for attending. Thanks. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.